Afternoon, folks. If everybody's all right, we'll get started. Can I welcome everybody to the meeting of the Derry and Strabane Assurance Audit and Risk Committee. It's 4 o'clock, Monday, 19th of June. And if we can start with the notice and summons of the meeting.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, members. I'll just proceed to take the roll. Alderman Keith Kerrigan. Alderman Ryan McCready. Alderman Nairi McMorris.
Here, Chair.
We have apologies for Councillor Raymond Barr. Councillor Shauna Cusack.
Here.
Councillor Caroline Devine. Councillor Sean Fleming.
And Sean.
Councillor Sean Harkin.
Here.
Councillor Conor Heaney.
Sure.
Councillor Christopher Jackson.
And sure.
Councillor Fergal Leonard.
And sure.
Councillor John McGowan.
Apologies.
Councillor Declan Norris.
Here.
Councillor Martin Riley.
Here.
Thanks, members.
Thank you, Denise. We'll just move to the broadcasting statement now, and I'll read that out. I would like to remind everyone present that this meeting will be broadcast live to the internet and will be capable of repeated viewing. This webcast may be terminated or suspended in accordance with our protocol. If you are seated in the lower public seating media areas, it is possible that the recording cameras will capture your image, and this will result in the possibility that your image will become part of the broadcast. This may infringe your human and data protection rights, and if you wish to avoid this, you should move to the upper public gallery. And item number 4, would any member like to declare an interest? Go ahead, Brona.
Thank you, Chair. Brona Slevin, independent member. Just in respect of item number 12, and I'm happy to step out at that stage, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Chairperson's business. I didn't receive any notification from members. I do have several people that I want to acknowledge and extend congratulations to, and I hope committee members will join me in that as well. The first is to James McLean. As people know, James McLean is going to make his 100th appearance for Ireland, the Republic of Ireland, tonight. I think it's a huge achievement to win 100 caps. And I think that we as a council should acknowledge this achievement by James. I mean, look, in another life, I wish this was me. I would love to have been a professional footballer. I would love to have been played 100 games for Ireland. And we know that James is in many ways a great model for people here in Derry, people across the island, and people internationally. He's played for Trojans, he's played for Institute, he's played for Derry. I think people should be proud of James's achievement, and it's great that he's going to be captaining the team tonight. I would like for us to write to James and formally acknowledge this achievement, and hopefully the Mayor will be able to organise a recognition event for James and his family. And I hope members will be all right with that. The second person that I want to acknowledge is another person from Derry who I know very, very well. Micheál Kerrigan is going to be the Grand Marshal for the Dublin Pride this Saturday. And the reason why he's going to be the Grand Marshal this Saturday is because 50 years ago in Dublin at Trinity, Micheál was one of the founders of the sexual liberation movement, and the sexual liberation movement that was founded in Trinity in October 1973 held the first gay disco in Ireland. They also organised the first rally demonstration challenging the Irish government on its homosexuality laws at the time. And for the last 50 years, I can say that Micheál has been a relentless campaigner for gay and LGBT rights and for social justice just in general. And I think it's right that we as a council acknowledge this honour that's been bestowed on him, that he's going to be leading Pride in Dublin on Saturday. And again, Micheál has made a huge contribution here in Derry. but I think it goes well beyond that. I think it goes, you know, right across the island and also internationally. And then finally, I wanted to acknowledge John McCourt. Many people in here will know John McCourt very, very well. John has been a leader in campaigning for the victims of abuse by the state, abuse by religious institutions. And he's been a great spokesperson for that campaign, but he hasn't limited himself to that. Anything that I've ever been involved in, John's been a supporter of all justice campaigns. When Radio Foyle was under attack recently, John was there at the rallies, at the demonstrations, and I think we can say that's true of John and John, you know, for many of the issues. I read his very moving and heart-wrenching letter that he wrote, and it's published in the Derry News today. And I think a lot of people will relate to that. John is a very, very modest person, a very relentless person. I think he's somebody too that we as a city should be absolutely proud of. And we are going to be proposing that John be extended freedom of the city at the next full council meeting. So if any members would like to add their comments, you're more than welcome to do that right now. Councillor Jackson.
Good Chair, and I suppose on behalf of Sinn Féin, I would completely endorse your remarks in relation to the three individuals that you've highlighted. In relation to James has been a fantastic ambassador for the city for many years. He has faced down sectarianism and abuse in a very public manner, and I would like to commend the great strength that James has shown throughout all of that. And you've highlighted the fact that James is representing the Republic of Ireland on tonight and captaining our country for the date where on the occasion where he's achieved 100 caps. That's something that doesn't happen very often, and it's something that we should all be tremendously proud of. We all are tremendously proud of James, and I have no doubt that the Mayor will accommodate a civic reception of some sort. They acknowledge the massive contribution that James has played, not only for sport, but for standing up for people in this part of the world. In relation to Micheál, again, it's another son of this city who's stepping forward and playing a leading role in our capital city, and that's something. And again, has faced down discrimination for many years, and it's something that the people of this city have become renowned for. And it's only right that we as a council recognise that. So in relation to those two, absolutely no problem. In relation to John McCourt, is somebody who that we all know very, very well, and I appreciate that and welcome the fact that you're bringing a motion to full council, and once we see, and it is only right and just that such a motion is brought forward. So I would welcome the opportunity to discuss that much further and pay tribute to the role and the achievements and the challenges that have been overcome by Mr. McCourt at full council. So we'll reserve comments for that till the end of the month. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Anyone else? Councillor Cusack.
Thank you, Councillor Harkin. I don't know much about sport, but I do know of James's achievements and how incredibly proud the city and his family must be, as well as himself. But
knowing of him and knowing the humble kind of person he is, I'm sure he wouldn't be thinking that way about himself. I just want to be associated with all the other positive commentary. Again, like Sinn Féin as well too. I know John, I've been friends with him on Facebook. I've had many a chat with him. He's a very worthy candidate, but again, we'll reserve comment on that until the actual discussion. I'm just ask, have you approached John and his family in advance of this? Would he know, or would this come as a surprise to him?
Thank you, Councillor Cusack. No, we haven't actually discussed this with John and his family yet. We have talked about it with people who are familiar with John and who are in touch with him. I'm hoping that he will receive it in the way that we're thinking about it. And I think that he, given the discussion that he's been involved in this week, I think there should be some formal way that John is actually acknowledged for his contribution to social change. But thank you for that. Sorry. Councillor.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thanks for letting me in. Just want to wish you good luck in the year ahead in your role. And I was delighted myself to be appointed as Vice Chair in this committee, and looking forward to working with you and the rest of the council officers. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor. Alderman McCready.
Thank you, Chair, and congratulations on your appointments. I look forward to working in this committee with you. You highlighted 3 individuals commendable for sporting achievements, social justice, and a victims campaigner. The first 2, absolutely fully endorse. And on the latter one, I look forward to going through that process to see if we can bestow such a monumental accolade to someone who's been around so long and campaigned for something of vital social justice. So thanks for bringing that under Chair's business.
Thank you, Alderman. Anyone else? Okay, thank you. We'll move on. We'll move on to agenda item 5. Matters arising from the open minutes of the March 20 meeting. We're not going to do accuracies. We're going to go straight to comments from the minutes. Everybody okay to move on? Thank you. We'll move on to agenda item 7, the annual governance statement, and Denise is going to take us through that. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Members, the purpose of this report is to seek your endorsement of Council's annual governance statement for the financial year 22-23. As members will know, Council is required to produce an annual governance statement every year, which is attached to the financial statements and presented to the Audit Office by the end of June. Our governance framework comprises the systems and processes and cultures and values by which the Council is directed and controlled, and its activities through which it accounts to, engage with and leads our community. It enables the Council to monitor the achievement of its strategic objectives and to consider whether those objectives have led to the delivery of appropriate cost-effective services. The governance statement there is attached, members, for your approval. However, I would just bring your attention to the most significant issues for Council, which are detailed in the report below. It details the significant governance issue, the controls in place, and the proposed action being taken to deal with the issue. This year, members, we have highlighted 5 significant governance issues in our governance statement, which you will see there, but we have detailed the controls and the proposed actions that are in place for each of those. Happy to take members' comments or questions on any of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Denise. Anyone want to come in on this? Alderman McCready.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks for the report. The governance issue, which strikes me, even in a previous committee, I said I would push it off the GNS, but I think it's because it's come up in this paper here. I think it's worth discussing with members and yourself. That deficit from the outline business cases and projects within the city and growth deals, I have serious concerns of within that internally, who is going to make the decisions on what elements and projects within that are getting cut? Because I understand there's a governance and assurance aspect within GNS committee overall. But when the outline business cases and all of this were set, it was set pre-inflation, pre-financial pressures, pre-striking the rate, and now there's a financial gap. So in terms of like the risk assurance, what is our exposure from council for that deficit? Where does the liability start and where does the liability end? And I just want to work out within our governance framework of who can we hold to account of and who's making that decision-making process so that we can assure that process within this committee. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Alderman McCready. Alfie, would you be able to respond to that?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Alderman McCready, I know there is a meeting next Monday of the City Deal Working Group, which will consider those issues in detail. And obviously, anything discussed in the City Deal Working Group then comes before Governance and Strategic Planning Committee for detailed approval. So all those risks will be considered in detail through that committee following the meeting of the City Deal Working Group, which is scheduled for next Monday.
You wanted to respond, Alderman McCready?
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Alfie. I take the point entirely of that process within that committee, but my point of view on this is how do we assure that? So what frameworks are going to be in place within this committee to actually audit that? It's such a big issue. It's so much of a financial quantum, and I see it as a significant risk to assure. So I don't fully understand the framework of how we can conduct assurance on that within this committee of something which is going to be done external to our committees. And then we're just going to be left with whatever the result is anyway. So I'm just looking clarity on the actual governance and assurance so we can calculate the risk and offset accordingly because it is public money. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Alderman McCready. Denise, did you want to respond to that?
Yeah, happy to do so, Alderman McCready, and I know exactly where you're coming from. As Alfie had says, the City Deal Working Group will be meeting next week and it'll be brought into GSP. Happy then to bring a further report into this committee as well, so that this committee is fully aware of the risks and the controls that are in place to deal with it. Also to advise you, we do have a risk register for City Deal, which is discussed by the City Deal Board as well, so we can bring a further report into this committee. Alderman McCready, if you're happy with that, in terms of the assurance framework and how members can be assured over all the controls that are in place over City Deal. And if you're content with that, we can bring that into the next meeting of this committee.
Would anybody else like to come in this? Do I have a proposer? Councillor Jackson?
Chair, thanks. And just on behalf of Sinn Féin, I'm happy to propose that we accept the recommendation. It's an extensive piece of work. It's outlining some of the how we could step through some of the challenges that are undoubtedly going to face council over the incoming year. And it is an extensive document, and fully agree with everything contained within it, and happy to support and propose. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Are you happy to second, Councillor Heaney?
Yeah, so happy to second.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to agenda item 8, Code of Governance, and James is going to take us through that.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to seek members' endorsement of Derry City and Strabane District Council's Code of Governance for the financial year 22-23. The SIFA Solus Delivering Good Governance and Local Government Framework was published in 2016 and represents best practice for developing and maintaining a local code of governance and making adopted practice open and explicit. Derry City and Strabane District Council is committed to the principles of good governance and has developed a local code of governance as a public statement of that commitment. Derry City and Strabane District Council is committed to the core of supporting principles of good governance set out within the SIFA Solus framework. The Council's local code of governance is supported by the systems, processes and documents that determine and control the way in which the Council manages its affairs. There's no implications arising from this report, and it's recommended that members approve the Council's Code of Governance 22-23 as outlined in Appendix C. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Would any members like to comment? Alderman McCready.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks for the report. The 7 principles, I take it, is that a straight extraction from the Nolan principles for servants in public life? Okay, thanks.
You want to respond to that, James, or is that fair enough? Anyone else? Councillor Cusack proposed. Anyone happy to second?
Would second that, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Leonard. We'll move on now to the annual audit report for 22-23, and Deborah's going to take us through that.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to seek members' endorsement of the Council's annual audit opinion for 22-23, attached at Appendix D.
Sorry.
In accordance with the Chartered Institute of Internal...
Sorry, keep going there, Deborah. The volume's got better.
You're okay. Do you want me to start over again? I don't mind.
Would you mind doing that?
Yep, no problem. The purpose of this report is to seek members' endorsement of the Council's annual audit opinion for 2022-2023, attached at Appendix D. In accordance with the Chartered Institute of Internal Auditors, Professional Standards and Guidelines and the Public Sector Internal Audit Standards 2013, which were last updated in August 2017, the Chief Audit Executive must deliver an annual internal audit opinion and report that can be used by the organisation to inform its governance statement. The annual internal audit opinion must conclude on the overall adequacy and effectiveness of the organisation's framework of governance, risk management and control. The annual report must incorporate the opinion, a summary of the work that supports the opinion, and a statement of conformance with the public sector internal audit standards and the results of the Quality Assurance and Improvement Programme. On the basis of the work carried out, internal audit can provide a satisfactory level of assurance that the Council's control environment is adequate and effective. That is, that satisfactory assurance can be obtained from the governance systems and procedures in place. This is a positive assessment of the Council's control environment and reflects favourably on the organisation's governance arrangements. This opinion is based upon the work of the internal audit section over the 22-23 financial year. Although the audit plan was not completed in full for the 22-23 financial year, the internal audit manager is satisfied that a significant amount of assurance work was carried out and the associated reports were provided to committee on high risk areas facing the organisation. It was another challenging year for the internal audit section. The internal audit section is a small section in Council, and the objective of the section has been, with the finite resources available, to provide members of the Assurance, Audit and Risk Committee with the assurances they require in a timely manner on the management of the current key corporate risks. In any large and complex organisation, it is unlikely that the internal audit plan will remain unchanged over the course of a year, and it's never the priority of internal audit to complete the plan at the expense of its relevance. The internal audit section will continue to be pragmatic in its approach and will continue to provide progress report updates on the completion of future plans to committee. There are no implications as a result of this work, and it is recommended that members approve the annual audit report for Derry City and Strabane District Council 22-23, attached at Appendix D. Happy to take any comments or questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Deborah. Would any members like to comment? Councillor Heaney.
Thanks, Chair. It's just a question, really, and forgive my ignorance. I'm new to this committee, but in terms of the level of assurance being satisfactory, is that as good a result as Council can get, or is it the option simply satisfactory or unsatisfactory, or where does that sit on the scale of audit assurance?
Thank you, Councillor Heaney, for your question. Yes, in relation to the annual audit opinion, the assurance levels, you basically get either satisfactory or not satisfactory. So that is the highest level of assurance that we can give, and it's in each individual audit, which you'll come on to throughout the year when we present audit reports, they would have different levels of opinion, but as far as the accumulation of that into an annual report is concerned, it's either satisfactory or unsatisfactory. Thank you, Chair.
Okay with that, Councillor Heaney? Any other comments?
That basis, I'm happy to propose, sir. I just want to.
I just have Alderman McCready, did you want on there? Go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. If it is proposed, I'm happy to second. Just a comment on congratulations to get that result. I know these are tedious and very microscopic in black and white and in huge volumes of literature, policy and everything that comes with it. So we really appreciate that from this side of the chamber. So well done. Thanks.
Thank you, Alderman. We have a proposer and a seconder. Is everybody okay to accept the?
Thank you,
ahead.
Chair. I'd just like to echo the comments that have been made already about the congratulations to the team for all the hard work, which indeed has been a challenging year throughout. And the satisfactory opinion, it's good to see that being delivered upon as well. So just want to echo those comments that have already been said. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay. Everybody's happy to move on. We'll move to 10, Public Sector Internal Audit Standards, and Deborah's going to take us through that as well.
Okay, thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to seek members' endorsement of the Internal Audit Section's self-assessment against the Public Sector Internal Audit Standards attached at Appendix E. Public Sector Internal Audit Standards were introduced in 2013 and replaced the Code of Practice for Internal Audit in Local Government in the UK 2006. The Public Sector Internal Audit Standards are mandatory for all local authorities and apply across the whole of the public sector. The Internal Audit Section is required on an annual basis to carry out a self-assessment against the Public Sector Internal Audit Standards. The overall result of the self-assessment exercise for 22-23 is that the Council's Internal Audit Section has a high level of compliance with the Public Sector Internal Audit Standards. The self-assessment against the Public Sector Internal Audit Standards for Derry and Strabhan's Internal Audit Section for 22-23 is attached at Appendix E for members' review and comments. There are no implications as a result of this work, and it's recommended that members approve the Internal Audit Section's self-assessment against the Public Sector Internal Audit Standards attached at Appendix E. Again, happy to take any comments or questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Deborah. Any comments? Someone like to, Alderman McCready, go ahead.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks for the report. Happy to propose as it is. And then I've got a question which doesn't really fit neatly in this item of the last, but it's something that I discussed briefly with Denise prior to this. And it is specifically on when we look at the both corporate risk register and how we give assurance and not only just assess the risk, but I think there's an element within there which is not omitted because it's covered in other documents about the risk appetite which Council corporately would have on some of the risks on our register. And I just maybe would inquire, how can we articulate that in such a way for members that we can see beside each of the, if it's a corporate risk or a strategic risk, albeit it's not our job or function in this committee to determine what that risk appetite is, but it does fall within this committee to work out the framework which I believe can be enhanced so that we can identify the risk appetite, because risk appetite can be very different for one of the risks, financial aspects, right the way down to another extreme, which would be more tolerant to a risk because it'd be a very low impact. I think it's a good decision mechanism framework for this committee in here for the assurance aspect, but more so for governance and strategic planning committee who will make that decision. I think that column or that cross extraction from that other documents, because they are hefty documents, they're good to read, but not good for a reference guide to make informed decisions on assurance, audit and risk. Whether it's a comment now to help us or something in the future as a paper, Denise. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Alderman. Denise is going to respond.
Yeah, thank you, Alderman McCready. And as Alderman McCready said, we've had a discussion about this previously. Happy to take on board the comments, very helpful comments that Alderman McCready has made. In terms of our risk appetite, it is all documented on our risk management strategy. And as Alderman McCready said, we do have a different risk appetite for different types of risk. Whenever we present, we will be presenting service risk registers and the corporate risk registers at subsequent meetings of this committee. And when we put those into this committee, then I will present a summary in terms of the risk appetite against those, particularly the corporate risks, Alderman McCready, because those are the most significant ones. We'll incorporate the risk appetite in against those for members' information. So happy to take that on board, and we'll do that whenever we're presenting the corporate risk register, if you're happy enough. Okay.
Okay, Alderman, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks very much. Looking forward to it. A specific question now is where within the decision-making framework in council, who's going to set that risk appetite? Is that delegated to officers, or the governance is where I would presume it lays, but I'm trying to work that out.
So we have a risk management strategy, and the risk appetite is set in that, and that was approved by members. So our updated risk management strategy was just approved there in the last financial year. So we'll bring that back in, or I can send that to you after this committee so that you can see it. So it's all been approved by members as part of the risk management strategy, which is reviewed and updated regularly. But as I say, the last one was just last year.
Okay, Alderman. Any other comments? All right, I think you agreed to propose. Is that correct? Can I get a seconder? Councillor Fleming, thank you. All right, we'll move on to agenda item 11, Assurance, Audit and Risk Committee, Terms of Reference, and James is going to take us through that.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to seek members' comments and approval for the Assurance, Audit and Risk Committee's Terms of Reference attached to Appendix F. SIFA's position statement, Audit Committees and Local Authorities 2022, sets out SIFA's view on the role and functions of an audit committee. The position statement emphasises the importance of audit committees being in place in all local authorities and recognises that audit committees are a key component of an authority's governance framework. The 2022 edition of the position statement replaces the 2018 edition. The core functions of an audit committee are to provide oversight of a range of core governance and accountability arrangements, responses to the recommendations of assurance providers, and helping ensure robust arrangements are maintained. The specific responsibilities include maintenance of governance, risk and control arrangements, financial and governance reporting, establishing appropriate and effective arrangements for audit and assurance. There's no implications arising from this work, and it is recommended that members approve the terms of reference for the Assurance, Audit and Risk Committee attached to Appendix F. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Any comments? Would someone like to propose? Thank you, Councillor. The light's just making it very difficult for me. Devine. Thank you, Councillor Devine. Welcome to the chamber as well. Is that a seconder from Councillor Norris? Okay, thank you. We'll move on. Agenda item 12, Independent Advisor, Extension of Contract, and Denise is going to take that. And Brona has departed the chamber, just for the record.
Thanks, Chair. Members, the purpose of this report is to seek your approval to extend the contract of the independent advisor to this committee for the duration of the council term. Members who have been on the committee before, and for new members' information, it's important to note that the Northern Ireland Audit Office and SIFA Best Practice Guidance recommends that local authorities should appoint an independent advisor to sit in their audit committees to provide expert advice to yourselves as elected members. In compliance with this recommendation as council, we have had an independent advisor on our committee since 2015. We carried out a recruitment exercise in 2019, and as a result of that, Brona Slevin, who you've just met, was appointed to our committee for the last council term. This appointment will come to an end at the end of this meeting, and as a result of that, we are required to commence a new exercise. However, we have sought advice internally, and our procurement advice is that if you are satisfied with the service provided and there's no change to the remuneration, then it is appropriate to extend the contract for another council term. Best practice would dictate that we're allowed to have the same advisor for 2 council terms, but after that, we would have to go through a recruitment exercise again. There's no change to the remuneration. The independent advisor is paid a fee of £330 per meeting, and non-attendance at meetings will result in non-payment. So members, this is just to seek your views and your comments on this, to see if you're happy enough to extend that appointment, or if you would like us to commence a recruitment exercise again. Happy to pass it over to members. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Chair, for that. I do have a question. I mean, we're in a time of great financial challenge, and £330 for a meeting looks expensive. Are we getting value for money? And can you maybe say what the options would be if we decided not to do that? Thanks.
Thanks for this, Chair. Yeah, you're right. And obviously, everything's a financial challenge to us at the minute. In terms of the best practice guidance would dictate that we should have 2 independent advisors on our committee. But because of the financial constraints, we have always taken a decision to have 1. We don't really believe that there's any great merit in having 2 if we have 1 good one. So that's one control basically that we've put in to mitigate against that. We've also benchmarked against that against other councils and what they're paying, and they're all more or less paying the same. I think we're quite prudent. Some councils pay more than us, so we are quite prudent. And again, just to advise members that it is best practice to have an independent advisor, and it's really for members' benefit because sometimes some of the reports going through audit committee can be quite complex, and it's for members to have their own independent assurance that maybe if they don't trust us as officers, that you're getting that independent assurance from someone else. It's best practice for members. And I know the audit officer on the call, but I would imagine that we would be criticised by the audit office if we don't have an independent advisor. So that's my comment.
Thank you, Denise. Any other comments on this? Councillor Cusack?
Excuse my ignorance, obviously I'm new to the committee, so I've never gone through this before, but just a wee bit concerned about should this not be confidential, or is this information in the public domain and it's a standard fee no matter what? Okay.
Do you want to respond?
Yeah, happy enough. It's in the public domain. It's a standard fee. It's nothing controversial or anything, Councillor Cusack. So happy that it's an open business.
Thank you, Councillor Cusack. Anyone else? Alderman McCready.
Thanks, Chair. And I agree. I think we should approve this based on the recommendations from officers. Now, that's just not carte blanche. I did do some inquisition, because anything which, if you're appointed for a term and it's a remunerated position, and we do need it, and it is best practice, but to have a sequential term without a procurement, that's why I raised a question. And I've been satisfied that it is in accordance with how we do this type of contract. My second concern is about you have a balance between continuity and over-familiarity. So when you have the term independent, that wanes over time. I've seen in other organizations where we've had independent advisors for 10, 12 years. At what point do you not become independent? And after this term, I've got no concerns or issues by approving a second term, because in this case, the continuity would be primacy. I don't see any complacency or over-familiarity. So that's my endorsement. And just a second supplementary question, Chair, if you may, is how do you conduct you mentioned value for money. I took the point earlier from the member about the confidential or not. So I was a little bit concerned, but it's been reassured now on that. But the second question is, how do you measure effectiveness, contribution to that? What mechanisms are in place? Irrespective of who that appointment or appointee is irrelevant for this question. It's how do you measure it? How do we see it so that we can quantify good value input for money over long periods of time? Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Alderman. Denise, do you want to respond to that?
Yeah, that's a very difficult question, Alderman McCready, because I suppose it's for as I've said, the independent advisor is for members to see if you're getting the benefit from it. What I would say as an officer sitting on this side of the table is that I know that the independent advisor who sits in the committee at the minute does scrutinise the reports. We would meet with her beforehand and she will go through a list of issues with us. So she does scrutinise the report. So I can give members that assurance that she is putting in the work in terms of going through the report. She meets with us an hour before the committee. We go through all the details with her. In terms of, as I said earlier, we do benchmark it against other councils to see what they're paying so that we're not paying in excess. And that's really all we can do at the minute. It's very hard to quantify or to assess if we're getting value for money.
Alderman.
Thanks, Chair. Happy with those answers. To be more specific, so is there internal surveys, validation, internal validation, external validation? And it can be as simple as if members of the committee say, well, so I'm trying to remove it from subjectivity between officers and those who you appoint on a contract?
Yeah, so we do. There's an audit committee self-assessment that's done on an annual basis, based on best practice guidance as well. So that's sent out to members, to the audit office, to officers, and to the independent advisor as well. And it goes through all the functions and aspects of audit committee. We summarise that and we bring that back into committee with, a summary of all the input into it, any recommendations that's coming out of it, any issues and actions that the audit committee should be aware of. So that is done, Alderman McCready, on an annual basis as well. Yeah.
Okay, any other comments? Would someone like to propose?
Chair, Councillor Riley here. I don't need to comment. I was just happy to propose it to put that in the chat box. Thanks.
Sorry, Councillor Riley, could you say that again?
Sorry, I had indicated I was happy to make the proposal that we extend the contract and put that in the chat box already. Thanks.
Just seeing that now. Thank you, Councillor Riley. And I see that Alderman McMorris is happy to second. Okay, everybody all right? We'll move on to agenda item 13, Corporate Health, Safety, Wellbeing Committee Report and Update April 2023. And Denise is going to take us through that as well.
Thank you, Chair. Members, the purpose of this report is to provide you with an update from the Corporate Health and Safety Wellbeing Committee meeting, which was held on the 19th of May, and to seek your continued endorsement for the health and safety management systems and processes in place within the Council. So members will be aware, and for new members, to make you aware that there's a Corporate Health and Safety and Wellbeing Committee group which meets on a quarterly basis, which is chaired by the Chief Executive, attended by the Directors, Lead Officers and Union Representatives, and it forms an important part of our ISO 45001 Health and Safety Management System. The committee report that was presented with all the subsequent documentation to that committee is now presented here to members today for information. Members will be aware that we do have the ISO 45001 accreditation, and as a result of that, we are subject to 2 external audits on an annual basis. The last external audit that was done in January, we've just received the report, and that report is presented today with these papers for members' information as well, which is recommending that we continue with our recertification. And we are aiming now, we have another external audit for health and safety commencing on the 17th of July, a 4-day audit, and we will bring the results of that into members whenever that takes place as well. There's nothing, there's no significant issues that I need to bring to members' attention in these reports, but happy to take any questions or comments that any members may have. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Denise. Any questions or comments on agenda item 13? Alderman McCready.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks for the report. 2 questions. The first one is on page 261 under the objectives and the completion status. It says here on inspections on skips, it's at 20% complete. Is it just because that's the cycle that we're in and it's just started, or what's the reason for being so low at this point in time? The second question, Chair, if I may, is I'm looking at the health and safety overview, the pie chart and the green ticks, but what draws my attention is the cancelled, or the X in 2.1 head of business, the second column, sorry, second row down has got a blue X. So is it cancelled? What's the reasons for it being cancelled? I don't understand the implications of that, and there's a few of those dotted throughout some of the committees. I'm content with things which are work in progress, but things which are cancelled, I would like an explanation. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Alderman. Denise, do you want to respond to that?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Alderman McCready. In terms of your first question in relation to the skips, I know that there was an issue in terms of completing the full checks on that due to budget issues. However, we were doing what we were required to do from a mandatory perspective. But Alderman McCready, I'm happy to get more detail on that and to bring that back to you then and let you know the detail on that one. In terms of the X's, they're not cancelled. They are where it's 0% and there hasn't been a progress update on that. All those 0% have been raised with the relevant heads of service and the managers, and they are now feeding into the next report for 23-24, which will come into the next committee, Alderman McCready. A number of those ones you will see will be in relation to training, and training has been significantly impacted as a result of COVID. But over the last year, we have been able to get back on track with training again. Now we're back into classroom-based training, and there's been a huge corporate focus in relation to training to get all those completed because of the implications of COVID in relation to that. But if there's any in particular that you have any issues with, I'm happy to take that away and provide you then with further updates, and I can provide further detail on each and every one of them. Thanks.
Thank you, Denise. Do you want to respond there, Alderman McCready?
Thanks, Chair. Thanks very much for first answer, content. In terms of the answer, I'm not content of why we're so far behind and there's financial issues there, but I'll let that run its course through the relevant committees. The second point, I'm not as content with the answer, because if we're doing the assurance of these type of risks and there's been no update to this point, a simple X and 0% with no comment in either of the columns, it says latest status update and then managed by high range 2. That latest status update, I would expect certainly from a senior director level, more than what I've seen here. I don't think that's an acceptable form of a comment at this stage. I know there are extenuating circumstances in some cases, but not as many of what I've seen. So I take the comment that we can get updates on this, but I would have issues on anything with an X with 0% with no comment, because it's not enabling us to approve and endorse the work which has been presented in front of us when we don't have all the accurate information. And that is the whole point and function of Audit Assurance and Risk Committee. So please take that in good will to the team and see if we can increase and enhance those boxes, please. Thank you, Chair.
No, and thank you for that, Alderman McCready. From a corporate health and safety perspective, we are constantly updating these objectives and targets, but they're only as good as the information that feeds into us, and we're subsequently reporting them to your committee. But I'm happy to take these back to the relevant directors to provide updates, and the directors can then provide you with further updates in relation to each of their areas. Thank you.
Any other members want to comment? Okay, would anyone like to propose? Second. Councillor Heaney, proposer. Alderman McCready, seconder. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on. The next two items, agenda 14 and 15, are open for information. If anyone has a question, there's officers here who can address them. Okay, with that, it doesn't seem like there's any questions or comments. We'll bring the meeting to a close. I want to thank the officers for their presentations and the hefty document work that was provided in the agenda papers. And thank you to all members for contributing.